Hey, everybody. Are you with me when I say life can be amazing at times, but it can also be extremely challenging? I know, I've been there myself, learned some valuable life lessons along the way, and now I'm here to help you. It's no coincidence you found your way to the Relevate podcast. I'm your host, Rena Olson, a self-proclaimed inspirer of others. Together, we're going to dive deep into raw and honest conversations with real people. My hope is that through these stories, you too will be inspired and ready to tackle whatever's holding you back or breaking your heart. Then you'll be free to live a life of purpose and true fulfillment. I promise it's possible. Let's relevate. Hey friends, it's Rena Olson. Welcome to this episode of the Relevate podcast. Today we turn our inspiration to the glorious topic of food, specifically how food is love. I believe magic happens when you cook and serve something with love and when it's shared around the table with others. Joining me today on Relevate is my young and fabulous friend, one of Atlanta's favorite celebrity foodies, Skye Estroff. I know you'll enjoy her infectious energy and inspiring views on food as much as I do. Skye Estroff, welcome to the Relevate podcast.
Thank you, Rena. I'm so excited to be here and chat with you. And I'm just so excited that you love food as much as I do, is what it sounds like.
I know. When you were our guest at Rotary, I was like, yes, a woman after my own heart. And you could just tell that, everybody in the crowd was just so enamored by your presentation and by you and kind of just your love and your passion for food. So how fun that you found your niche in life so early on. So I am excited to learn more about you, and I know my listeners are as well. So just tell us a little bit about your background, Skye.
Thanks, Rita. And thanks for saying that was a fun presentation. I'm glad that I could liven up a morning that started at 7:15 because that's not normally when I start talking in the day. So I'm glad it all made sense at the time. And I appreciate that we are not meeting at 7:15 for this interaction. We picked a better time. But I guess like the short version of my story is that I have just found, I don't know, I guess it's just like food has always been my love language. When people would give me food as gifts or take me to a restaurant or cook with me, that's when I felt so much love in my life. And that's how I shared that with other people, of cooking for people or baking for people or talking about food. And I cooked with both my grandmas in the kitchen growing up. And they're just the best. And I still cook with them. And it's like our favorite things to talk about. We always compare recipes. And they're just really great inspirational food figures in my life. So I think they really taught me early on. My dad is a great baker, not a good cook. My mom is an excellent cook, but not a good baker. So there you go. All sides. And my mom home cooked all of our meals growing up. We would go out to eat occasionally, but really she was a great home cook. And so I was spoiled, and I just figured everybody else had that experience and they might not have. And so the more that I could take classes about food, the more I would, because I just wanted to be involved in that world. And that
from a very young age too, right?
Yes. I mean, I was like, they used to joke about me going to fancy restaurants as a child and being the only child they'd let in because I was so well behaved, and I would just sit there quietly and have my skills of dining and utensils and everything. So I, from an early age, gravitated toward food. But my first official food classes, I took some camps and stuff, like probably in elementary and middle school, but high school was the first time that I actually was in a formal culinary training. I took a couple courses in nutrition and I just loved it. I threatened my parents that I was going to apply to culinary school, and they were like, this is great, but maybe you can have that culinary experience and a formal or just like a traditional college experience all in one. So that's how I selected dietetics for my major going into college. And also randomly found out when I was applying that my great grandma was a dietetics major, became a dietitian, a registered dietitian after. So like, thank you for telling me that this is really deeply instilled in my DNA, all of this food knowledge and love. So started taking food classes for my major in college, and I just have always, it's the subject that gives me the most interest. There are so many things that I can't relate to, or it's over my head, or I'm just a little bit bored by, but this is something that I just have always been fascinated by. Like even in my earlier days of not taking the classes, but just whenever I would give presentations in school, always would have a food element, always would bring in food, always would be watching Food Network. Like I always tell the story of like, in fourth grade, we had to do a DIY project, and most people did how to build a popsicle stick frame or something like that. And mine was how to make a French apple tart like Sarah Moulton on Food Network. And I layered this like mandolined apple on top of this homemade crust and everything. And yeah, that's just kind of where my mind always was.
Wow. So are you more of a kind of a fancy food person, or are you more of kind of burgers and grilled cheese, or all of the above?
Definitely all of the above, but I think I have the affinity and appreciation for formal cuisine, and I can respect that and see the work that people put into it and the skill that it takes to put that food on the table. And I appreciate it. I can't appreciate it every day because that is just a little bit too much and too formal for me. And typically, like when I go out to eat with my boyfriend or something, I prefer something a little bit more low key, casual, something that you can just sit down and not have to have the white tablecloth and a fancy environment distracting. Like, I just want to chill and enjoy my food without having to think about the manners and all of the things around it.
Yeah. Well, and since you've become one of Atlanta's food experts, whenever we watch Guy Fieri, we're like, how is he not hugely overweight? Because he is, when we see him, he's indulging in very,
yes,
decadent diner fried food. So I'm sure that's one of the hazards of what you do.
It certainly is. Well, first of all, props to Guy in so many ways. That's what I watch on Friday nights. I am binging Triple D when that's on back to back on Food Network. So I love Guy Fieri. I just think he's such a funny, positive figure in the food space. And he's done so much for giving back to restaurant industry workers. So I respect him immensely. But I also cannot fit a triple stack ultimate burger in my mouth in one bite the way he does like the knuckle sandwich. So you won't see me doing that, but you'll see me try to do that with like a single patty burger. But I think he's just awesome. And yes, it's a hazard that you might gain weight doing it. I probably have, and I probably am just going to be accepting of my body in that way. I think it's always a push and pull, and all because food that you see on Instagram or on TV is typically more indulgent. Like I said, like a triple stack burger that you could envision Guy Fieri eating, or some sort of cheesy pull of mac and cheese, or a spaghetti and meatball, or just something that's visually very pleasing. Those are more indulgent dishes. That's just not the reality of like my diet on the day-to-day basis. I try to like respect my body with nourishing foods at the same time too. I think it's all about the balance of enjoying these indulgent dishes, but also trying other foods that can still be tasty and healthy for your body. And I guess that's really where my dietetics stuff comes in. But I do that, and I try to go to hot yoga like 5 days a week. So that doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, and that opens up your appetite too.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It allows me to eat more. That's for sure.
So let's talk about the Atlanta food scene, because, we both live here in Atlanta, and I live on the north side of town. You live in town. So how would you describe it?
Wow, I would say evolving. I think like in any given period of time, the Atlanta food scene has been changing, growing, transforming into something better and bigger every single year. Especially in the North Side, so much evolution in food there. In town, ITP Atlanta, same thing is happening. I think we are getting a higher concentration of incredible restaurants. We're attracting incredible talent. And we're also opening up the palates of the people that live in Atlanta. The more that we're exposed to different cuisines or different types of food, the more that people and business owners or people that want to own a restaurant or a business are like, okay, there's an audience for this. We can exist here. So I think there's a lot more acceptance and evolution that's come over the past couple of years. I mean, think about the past 10 years, night and day. The past 20 years, oh my gosh, like I can't even imagine. And 30 years ago, I don't even think Highway 400 was built. So I think we have seen a dramatic shift. And it's a positive shift. I think the more that we can have accepting and adventurous eaters, the more that people are accepting and open to different cultures, different people. And I think that just adds to progress in the world. So I love to see it. And I think we're going to continue on this path too.
For sure. I remember when I moved to Atlanta in the mid 80s, and Atlanta was calling itself an international city, largely because of the airport. You know, the vision was really cast by the airport. And for me, it felt like a stretch calling us an international city back then. But today we truly are. And of course, that's reflected in the food that we now have at our disposal with all of the wonderful ethnic and fusion restaurants.
Definitely. I would say, I mean, the airport, we're always going to have that as our bragging right. Definitely. And it still continues to be a great point of conversation for anybody in the world, you know, meet anybody and say, well, I'm from Atlanta, you know, the biggest, busiest airport in the world. But I definitely think that so much has changed. And I think I really don't know about the political systems that have enabled more of that change to happen. But I really think just like Buford Highway, for example, being, I think it's 36 miles long. And for that to be just a treasure trove of incredible, diverse restaurants, that being number one. But then I know on the north side of Atlanta, like, there's so many great restaurants. There's incredible Indian cuisine, Chinese cuisine, Thai food, like anything you're looking for exists in Atlanta now. And I don't know if that's always been the case. Like it was easier to find a classic American dish, but it wasn't as easy to find all of the different cuisines that we have today.
Yeah. So recently I was at a banquet and met the owner of Desta.
Oh, Desta, great spot. It's not far from me either. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't been there yet, but it just sounds so amazing. So those are the gems that we have throughout Atlanta now.
There's actually like three total Ethiopian spots within a probably mile and a half radius from my house. And one of them's Desta. There's Fadil Bistro and Gion or Gion, Gion near me. And they're all fantastic. It's a really cool thing too, because I think when you move to Atlanta and in the past several decades, there's always been this power in PR and media that supported these bigger restaurants. And I think we're also seeing a shift in the past, chunk of time. And as we progress forward, that smaller restaurants can exist and be just as influential as these big restaurants, not just chains, but just restaurants that have a lot of backing and financially, or a lot of great, powerful investors or whatever that may be. But smaller restaurants can exist and be just as influential these days.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel that we're still, the restaurants are still figuring their way out of COVID. The workforce just contracted so much during that time. And I know it's been so challenging for a lot of restaurants to stay in business just from a staffing perspective. So pray and hope that they figure that out soon, because I love a good restaurant.
Yeah, it's really sad that the industry has been hit so hard. And it's really like going back to what I was saying about Guy Fieri. I believe he has donated, I think, more than $80 million to the restaurant industry workers. And it's important that we all acknowledge that, COVID did deeply affect the restaurant industry, and it's deeply affected the trajectory of how we interact in the restaurant space. And like currently, if I'm going into a restaurant, I am tipping way more than I would have pre-COVID. I am acknowledging that like it's short-staffed potentially, and that I'm going to have more patience in a restaurant. And I think we all have to open our eyes and understand that like the level of service is going to be a little bit different. There's still there's great service happening in Atlanta, and there's great restaurant workers, and there's great staff and owners and talent, but there is a shift, and we all have to just be aware and be a little bit patient, and also understand that they can't accommodate every single ask that's asked, like every modification and substitution. And, it's just having that respect for the position that they're in. I'm hoping that as a general population, we're able to see that and respond to that in a good way.
Yeah. I agree. It's a hard business to be in. So they should be getting our utmost respect. It's a gift really that they're there to serve us. So
yes.
Super amazing. So, okay. So I know you love to dine out. Are you a cook at home as well?
Yes, I am a home cook as well. And that kind of helps me balance all of my indulgent meals out, is that my mainstay is cooking my food at home. And I make a lot of different things. Some people go on a routine or a rotation of certain recipes. I'm across the board, across the map. I actually order my groceries from this place called Fresh Harvest, and it's a Atlanta-centric company. They work with all of the small organic farmers around the state of Georgia and a couple in like Tennessee, and bring in organic produce and like stuff that local vendors make of pre-made meals and different, and like chocolates and olive oils and all of these like special fancy things. So I get my meals from there, and then my produce is coming in seasonally, like changing. So I just kind of take what I get from Fresh Harvest and I make a meal that seems balanced based on everything. And I'm just always changing up the menu and always just trying to have my carbs and my good veggies and some protein and some fats and something that makes it taste good. But yeah, my hands are pretty dry because I'm washing them from cooking a lot.
I feel your pain, sister. So are you then just kind of, what's the cooking show where you open up the basket and you
chopped? Yeah.
Are you going a la Chopped to just make whatever's in the basket, or are you going by recipes?
Pretty much. I would say if I ever get stumped, then I go to Pinterest is my actual first place that I go. I don't know if that's just like the millennial in me and not the like Gen Z who's going to TikTok or whatever. Sometimes I actually have gotten some recipe inspiration on TikTok, but Pinterest is the first place I go if I'm stumped and I have an ingredient that I don't really know what to do with, or I just don't feel like roasting a veggie. I'd like to do something that tastes different. I generally go there. I really like the recipes from Half Baked Harvest. I really like her stuff. She's awesome. The Defined Dish is also pretty good. But I generally am like, okay, salmon or broccoli or whatever I have that I'm stumped by. Those probably wouldn't stump me, but I couldn't think of another one. And then just creating some ideas from there. Or sometimes I'm just waking up and want to read a cookbook, and I'll like flip through some pages of some books that I have around, and then I get inspiration that way. But generally it's more of that chopped strategy. Or like, did you ever watch that show with Robert Irvine, and he would go in to somebody's house, and it wasn't the Restaurant Impossible one. It was this other show on Food Network back in the day. And I remember him like going into people's refrigerators, seeing what they had in there, and then having to make a meal out of what they had. That's how I feel on a daily basis. It's just, what do we have? Let's put something together, make it balanced, and somehow make it taste good. Sometimes it doesn't taste perfect, but I'm okay with experimenting with that risk.
Yeah. And my heart goes out to people that don't cook, because I know they weren't exposed to it growing up in home, or they're overwhelmed, or just really not interested. But it really is such a, I don't know, it's such an important part of our lives because we're always, we're eating one meal and planning our next. And we just find a lot of joy in the cooking and the planning and the preparing and the eating of it. It's all of that. And I don't know how you can truly be healthy if you're not cooking at home.
I agree with that. I think you're completely right, Rena, because restaurant food is delicious because there's a lot of extra hidden salt and butter and fats and makes it taste amazing. But I just think that cooking is a survival skill. It also is a way to deeply appreciate your food even more because you're seeing it go from start to finish. You're seeing it from really being plucked from the ground into a composed dish on your plate. It's really amazing to see that. And I'll tell you, when I start chopping veggies so much that I get a callus on my finger, it makes me appreciate that restaurant food even more, to think of the prep cooks that are putting all those ingredients together for you. It's a whole process. But I think, it's just, I'm with you. I have several friends that were not exposed to their parents cooking in the kitchen, and they just don't feel comfortable in that world. And I wish that people could find a space that they would feel comfortable with it. And I think a lot of it does start in childhood. And I work with a client that is, their whole mission is to get kids cooking in the kitchen early and exposed to new foods. It's amazing. I wish it was around when I was little, but I think that so much of it is having that connection to food at an early age, and I'm sure you feel the same way. If you weren't exposed in your up to 18 years of life, I don't know where I would begin. I don't know how I would do this process of having my chopped basket of ingredients and plugging and playing and somehow making it taste good. The fundamental knowledge has to be there for you to feel comfortable in the kitchen. And especially some of my friends who are perfectionists who also don't cook, I think it's because they're afraid to take any risks in the kitchen.
That's it for sure. So just a quick random question about you growing up, your childhood. So were you a chicken nugget kid? Did you have that kind of in your diet as well, or
yes,
not?
I had everything. I was really hungry as a child, to be honest. My dad always jokes about this one time and my dad flies for fun. So he has his pilot's license and he has other friends that are pilots. And one time we'd come back flying and we were flying with his friend. We went to Chick-fil-A. I was 5 years old. I ate my whole kid's meal, and then his friend wasn't finished. She's like, and I said, can I have yours too? And I ate his whole meal too. So I had a very healthy appetite for everything. I was exposed to my fair share of Chick-fil-A and McDonald's growing up, but I was very open to the fancy cuisines that were presented in front of me too. I loved Preachy, still love Preachy. That was my favorite spot to go with my grandparents. They would take me, there was a restaurant out from there, I'm trying to think which one, maybe Checkers, but it's not Checkers like the fast food, it was the cute. And they had these incredible, seafood and drop biscuits. Their biscuits were insane. Oh, I'm so glad you know what I'm talking about, because I could go for one of those biscuits right now. It's so good.
Amazing. But, you probably missed the peasant restaurants that were in Atlanta.
I may
have missed those. That was it was the Pleasant Peasant and Mix. Did you ever go to Mix? Mix, they kind of were around, but it was American cuisine, but they had a signature bread. They're nicer restaurants. You would go in and they would have a signature bread. And one of them had a cheese toast that was just
calls my name.
I can still remember it to this day. I'd pay a pretty penny for a piece of that cheese toast.
Maybe I'll dig up some research on that and we'll see if we can get that for you.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
there were restaurants in Atlanta that predated me that were excellent. And one that I've always heard about is Coach and Six that I really wish I was able to try. That's like was my grandparents' favorite restaurant, and they were very upset when it closed. But yeah, I also, my favorite food growing up was Chinese food. I loved Chinese food. So yeah, I had my fair share of chicken nuggets, but I also was open to whatever was on my plate in front of me because I was just hungry at all times.
That's so funny. So we have two kids. Our daughter was our firstborn, and she ate like us. She ate everything. You know, we're always cooking soups, trying to be healthy. She would eat everything. And then 4 years later, her little brother came along, and he was just, give me chicken nuggets, I want fries. And we tried not to keep sodas in the house, and he would drink soda the first chance he had at it. Well, now that he's a grown man and has his own house and he's married, he's all about cooking healthy and making soups. And we're like, you just don't know when it's going to stick, because he was so not that kid in his house.
That's so funny. Well, and I think that's rare that a kid would be that picky and now so adventurous in home cooking. Obviously, your influence of home cooking did pay off in the long run. I will say my little brother, he is 6.5 years younger than me. And he was a chicken nugget child who was obsessed with ranch dressing on everything. I did not like ranch in my childhood. It was just not in my palate. And now he experiments with all these foods, and he'll send me recipes of good things that he's cooked and tried. And I truly think, and I will credit you and like my parents that cooked in front of us and showed us the model, and it sticks. You never know when that is going to hit. It stuck sometime.
Yes. So we talked a little bit about this, about the concept that food is love. I mean, I firmly believe that. I believe that when something is cooked with love, wholeheartedly, instead of throwing something together, it just tastes different. So I would love to get your thoughts on the whole idea of food is love.
I agree with you. It's a simple statement, but it can be taken so many different ways. I think that, well, in anybody's experience, if you have actually put your hands into a dish and made it yourself, like made a fresh bread or something, like if I've made a bread, I tell you that bread tastes a million times better than if I bought a store-bought bread. And it also just tastes better because I just baked it and it's like fresh out of the
and
bread.
You've been smelling it too.
Yes, and smelling it, the anticipation of it, and the pride and the steps that it's taken to get to that point of you've put in the energy. I mean, you're physically putting in energy by your efforts, your labor, your attentiveness to a recipe, your observation to even pick out like a bell pepper that is not dried up, like a pretty looking pepper that you know is going to be flavorful in your dish. It's just, there's attention and energy put into every step of the way. And how could that not translate into love and more flavor in your dish? It just couldn't. And especially when you see a family member or somebody at a restaurant doing that preparation for you, it's the same feeling. It can transcend relationships or even if you didn't know somebody, but you know they prepared this dish for you and you saw the process from top to bottom, you would feel that just that love back for them and appreciation that they took the time to make that dish for you. I think it comes in so many forms, from just the individual ingredients to the actual composed dish to the way that we're able to share that love with each other, like how I make or bake things for people in my life. And I've always done that. I remember I was actually just talking to one of my best friends about in high school when her boyfriend broke up with her. I was like, that was really bad. But I also remember when I made you those homemade red velvet cupcakes to console you, and they were awesome. So it's something that can kind of make people feel better in certain moments, or kind of fill a void, as much as that's not really the best food speak, that food should not replace or feel emotions. But when somebody has made something for you and you know that they cared about you, they put that together, they brought it to you. Taking a bite is a little different than if you're just like binge eating a Butterfinger. So it's a nice feeling.
Yeah. And I think we take it for granted how integrated those traditions are in our culture that are oriented around food. It's like when someone you love has lost somebody or is hurting, you want to do something meaningful. And to me, there's nothing more meaningful than taking, a pot of soup or, something you've made by hand. To me, it has so much more meaning because it's a gift of the heart.
It is. You're so right. And I mean, that's something in those hard times. And we've had, unfortunately, some things happen in our lives recently where we've been like, what do we do? You feel helpless. So it's really love on both ends, because on the end of the person suffering, they need some love filled in their life. And on the person that cares about the person suffering, you just want to do something, but you don't really know how. And I think food is the easiest expression of just being there for somebody and showing that you have love and care for them. And I think it doesn't require words to do that. Like, this is just an act where you're able to say all of that without having to say all of that in those vulnerable times and moments.
Exactly. And somebody gave me some helpful advice. So, we're well-meaning when somebody loses a loved one or has a, diagnosed with some type of ailment. And, oftentimes we say, oh, I can help. And this person was saying, don't say that. Be very specific and saying, I'm at Target right now and I'm picking you up milk and some bread and some eggs. Do you need to adjust this or add anything to the list? And you just give it your best shot and you just do it. I thought that was really, really good advice, because we're all well-meaning when we say, let me know how I can help. And then people in crisis aren't going to say, oh, hey, by the way, can you do this for me? It's just not going to happen.
Right. And to require them to have to decide on things for you. Let me know how I can help. Well, I need about 100 million things right now, but I don't know how to delegate and tell you exactly what I need. What somebody does need every day is to be fed. And it's a good way for you to just put yourself in a position where you're helping somebody. And, I just think there's no better way to show that in those moments, because I truly don't know what else to do in those hard moments. I really don't. Like, food is where my head goes.
Food is love. For sure. Okay, Skye. So let's talk about the foodie phenomenon, because I feel like it's a thing that just continues to grow. You wouldn't hear about people claiming to be foodies very often, but now more and more people are, saying, yeah, I'm a foodie. What do you think is fueling that?
That's a really good question, because I think, food is one of those, we all are exposed to food on a daily basis. We're lucky to be privileged enough to have food in our lives. But if you're a human, it requires food as fuel for you to exist and survive. So it's just one of those things that we're all connected by, but also that we're really familiar with. With the foodie world and its evolution, I would say, really, like we were talking about earlier, just how Instagram gravitates toward that type of content and how people get likes and engagement out of sharing that content. I think that's kind of the attraction of being a foodie in today's landscape, is to go to places, share this, and get likes and get followers out of it. I think there are some people that are like me or you who feel that connection to food in a deeper way, and maybe have learned things about it or studied it or taken courses or use food as a vessel toward helping people in a certain way. And to me, those are like the key foodie people that I am attracted to engaging with. I think there's a lot of noise around being a foodie, of people that are just sharing something and it maybe doesn't taste great, or they had a bad experience, but they don't want to admit it because the photo looks good or whatever. And I wish there was a little bit more of like self-editing on that with some people. For me, I'm very harsh about my self-editing. If I don't enjoy something, I'm not sharing it. If I don't feel comfortable in a space, I don't want to tell other people to have the experience where they don't feel comfortable. So I think the phenomena is just pretty much there's more opportunities for people to put content out there. There's more opportunities for people to share like really food porny like images and videos, but it's also kind of curating who is that voice that you trust, who is giving recommendations that actually make sense, or who is working in this world of exclusively pay to play without any consideration of their audience and what their audience like is wanting out of them. Like, I think it kind of has to be that exchange. If you're just doing it because you want the engagement, but you don't want to consider their opinions into your content, then it's not as much of a mutual relationship, and it needs to be mutual when you're putting your content out there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know when a pretty plate comes across my way, I got to pull out my camera and take a picture.
Yes.
Have to. I don't always share it, but
I do it with every good dish that I'm eating. And even if it doesn't look pretty, I still have to just document it for the moment so we know what I ate when I went there. So I think that's awesome. And I don't want to discount that. I just think there's a lot of noise out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's probably more pictures of food on my phone than anything except my dog.
Me too. It's my cat and my plates. That's all it is on my phone.
For sure. Okay, since we're talking Atlanta here, I must know some of your favorite places.
Okay.
And I know that's probably going to be hard for you, but best breakfast.
Best breakfast.
Okay, you can have a few.
Okay. All right. I'll rattle them off. One is in your neck of the woods. I just ate there the other day. Hen Mother Cookhouse. Have you been there?
I just drove by that place. Is it amazing?
Rena, please go take your food photos and let me know what you think, because you will have an experience. It is incredible. Everything is scratch made. It's just in the visuals. I can't even. It's just over the top. Everything is delicious, and she sources really great ingredients too. But I would try Hen Mother. That's one of my favorite spots in all of Atlanta, hands down.
Oh, wow.
And the funniest thing is that I lived right around the corner from there. I could have walked from my neighborhood growing up, and I'm like, maybe this is a good thing it didn't exist while I was growing up. I don't know, but I feel like I missed out on childhood because of this. So Hen Mother is like my number one breakfast place, I think, right now. And I love Buttermilk Kitchen in Buckhead. It's one of my favorites. Fabulous biscuits. Good. Have you tried their biscuits?
Yes. And a really cool vibe and scene in the old house and everything.
Oh yeah. It's very homey, and it's another woman-owned restaurant. Both of those are, and they're fabulous. And there's also another spot by me. I think I mentioned this in Rotary Club, but it's called the Daily Chew, and it's open for breakfast, brunch, lunch, and you can also do to go for other meals, but their breakfast is fabulous. They have scratch made pastries every day, a really excellent menu of options, whatever you're craving they have. And it's all locally sourced food, produce and otherwise. It's just like, talk about food is love. It's just, they go the extra mile, all of these restaurants, to make it taste incredible.
Oh my gosh. Well, and West Egg?
Oh yeah, West Egg in Midtown. Yes.
Their bacon with the brown sugar on it. Have you? Yeah. So good.
First of all, bacon, period, is going to make me happy. With brown sugar on top of it, next level. My dad is obsessed with that kind of bacon. Like, he used to, at his company holiday parties, sorry, Dad, I'm outing you on this, but he used to bring a Ziploc bag in his tuxedo for his formal holiday parties, because they had this really good candied bacon that he would put in his Ziploc and bring home with him, because that's how neurotic he is.
No way.
Candied bacon. Yes. He had to bring it home for me to try.
Oh, food
Yeah.
is love.
Yes, food is love. I respect it.
That is awesome. So,
Yeah.
are you a brewery girl?
I am. I really can only have maximum 2 beers or I don't feel great, but I love being in the brewery environment. And I think Atlanta has a wealth of breweries. So
Ah,
really like hard to even narrow down, but all of the ones I like have food involved. One that opened,
surprise.
I know, surprise. Well, you have a beer, you need to have a piece of something. Like you need to
For
eat
sure.
during it. Do you have a favorite brewery?
Well, I love Sweetwater just because it's
Oh, I
kind
do
of
too. Yeah. And they have
it's
a kitchen.
accessible. Yeah,
Yeah.
they do have a
And
kitchen.
they renovated so much over COVID and they have a gorgeous lawn and the indoor outdoor garage doors. I really
Mhm.
love the space at Sweetwater too. I think, have you been to Bold Monk in West Midtown? Kind of
Mm-mm.
West Ag area, but that spot is gorgeous. It's just a really pretty restaurant that also happens to be a brewery and they have outdoor seating too. I really like it there because they have incredible fries. And, you know, I am a sucker for French fries. My first job, my job title was French fry aficionado. So I'm a big fry person, and especially with beer, it just goes together. I also love Orpheus Brewing. It's near Piedmont Park. So
Mhm.
over near me, it's a smaller brewery. And yeah, it's cute.
Never
It's like,
been.
yeah, you should check it out. Well, let me know when you go because I don't live far from there and
Okay, sounds
meet up
good.
and walk Piedmont Park after. But
I love it.
yeah,
Yeah, and I just love like the brewery scene, it's just they're gathering spots, and you see people with your young kids and their dogs and it's definitely more of a younger person vibe, but I love a good brewery just to sit out in the sun and hang out and chat.
I agree. I think the actual vibe of breweries is amazing and I love it. And it's just it's an easy gathering spot with your friends. Like you don't know
Yeah.
what to do during the day, you just go to a brewery. And it goes back to that. Do you want to be in a really formal space or do you want to be in a casual space when you're enjoying food and drinks with your friends? And I like being in a brewery casual space too. I also love Monday night brewing. And they have like tacos there. So I definitely had a birthday party there this year because it was so good.
Yeah, and New Realm,
Oh yeah. New
they've
Realm.
got real good food.
Talk about a stringy mac and cheese. New Realm has that. They've got the cheese pull down.
Oh, nice. I'll have to check that out. Okay, so your favorite dive or hidden gem?
Okay.
Do share some of those, Skye.
Yeah, I wrote a couple down and this is one of the harder questions that I've gotten, even though you've asked some toughies in this entire conversation, because there are so many hidden gem places. But okay, a couple that come to mind. The first I say, all right, there's this adorable, your husband would probably like this Italian market in Dunwoody called East 48th Street Market. Have you heard of it?
Been there. It's amazing.
Amazing. And they have pizza slices. It's just
fully authentic.
exactly. Like Atlanta needs more of those. We need more delis and we need more Italian delis. Like I would say those are the two things, but I love East 48th Street Market. There's a place called Poco Loco in like Kirkwood Cabbagetown area. And they make scratch made breakfast burritos and they're insane. It's just a really good spot. People know about it a little bit, but I think it's still under the hidden gem category that like most people don't. But once you eat a bite of that burrito with the homemade tortillas and the new ingredients that they bring in every week, and they make the homemade salsa and sauces and everything, they sell out all the time. It's great.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
I really need to go back there in the next couple of weeks, but I also need to maybe do hot yoga that day. But Poco Loco is fabulous. There's a place on Buford Highway that I just went for the first time recently, but like I thought about it several times. It's called White Windmill Bakery, and it's amazing. You can go there for just like lunch or breakfast, but you can also go there to pick up any pastry you ever could want, or order your cakes or anything like that. I found these cookies, and I don't know what they're called, but they looked like a little cheesecake cup or something, but they were like pound cake in a small form, like a mini muffin pound cake. And I love those with a little crunchy outside. Love them. Highly recommend White Windmill, and I would go back there every week just for something different. They also have some more like traditional pastries, and it's a great spot. And I guess the other two that I'm thinking of, I live over in my neck of the woods. There's this place called Little Bangkok, and I think it's been there at least 30 years, but the Thai food is phenomenal. Like, I've been to Thailand and taken cooking classes in Thailand, and it is spot on, incredible Thai food. I love it so much. Yeah, it's really good. And there's also one other spot that I'm like, that's near Sweetwater, right over there, that just opened, called Capella Cheese. And the cheesemonger that owns it used to work at Bacchanalia and sourced all of their food and provisions from there. And then he opened up his own spot. It's amazing. Just the best cheeses that you could find anywhere in the world, the best meats. They have like other little accoutrement there, like jams and jellies and chocolates, and they even make sandwiches there. Yes, great crackers. It's really good.
Well, now I am so hungry.
I know.
I get aggravated with my husband because, I mean, when you watch cooking shows, it opens up your appetite.
Yes.
And you want that thing that they're cooking right there.
I know. Well, now it's like we should have been together in person, so I could have brought you food so that this could be this full circle. Food is love. But next time I definitely will. But yeah, when I talk about food, I get hungry too. And when I do my research for food, I get hungry thinking about things too. It's just, when you concentrate on it all the time, I don't think it's human nature to not get hungry.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that you've been able to make a career out of your love and passion for food. But in doing that, you've learned a whole lot about social media. So tell us about that part of your business, Skye.
Yes. Well, I started working in food and media right out of college. And the company I was working for at the time, Instagram was just starting to be relevant. It was 2014, and Instagram only started in 2012. So everybody was kind of finding their path. And my goal was to first get to 10,000 followers on Instagram. And then I took it to almost 50,000 before I left, like 2.5 years later. So it was a lot of experimenting and figuring out what was working and how to get good food photos. The other thing in my background that has helped me is that I took photography all through high school. I even learned like darkroom development and how to take like compositionally sound photos. So that actually helped me somehow. Just know that taking quality photos and videos now those are essential components to building a food brand on social. So I took those skills to my job after that as well, and just really focused on marketing and did the same growth model and got it up to 50,000 followers. And then since I've been working for myself about 3.5 years, I work with clients to help build engagement and growth. And, we're not in the times anymore, like from 2014 to 2018, it was a lot easier to grow your following. It just was based on the algorithm and the way that things were working within Facebook and Instagram, but you can still grow in this day and age. And it just takes seeing what's working and having somebody dive into what is working and how are we getting this messaging across, and are we getting a call to action out there. So I work with a lot of clients that are food centric and try to get that message simply stated and with a pretty visual out there.
Yeah. It's so hard to grow a following. It really is. So do you have any tips?
I would say, like top 3 tips for social media growth in this day and age would be post regularly. So when you're trying to be on a growth path, I would say do stories every day, and then do posts on your feed that are like living on your feed, probably, I would say 5 days a week. But don't sacrifice quality necessarily to post that regularly. 3 to 5 days a week of quality posts that are varied between like reels, carousels, and just static post images. And then doing stories in tandem with that. Then I would say interact and engage with your audience and beyond. So answer comments and DMs that you're getting. Maybe like comment on a couple of people that you follow that are like in the same line of work that you're doing, and just like say, wow, that was such an interesting interview, or whatever you need to say to make your name pop up under somebody else's information that's kind of in that same, looking for the same stuff that you offer. So engagement is a number 2, like number 1, posting regularly. Number 2, engagement. Number 3, I would say to probably dive into what's working. So like, not saying that you have to hire somebody like me, but just from a general glance, knowing, okay, we put out 15 posts this month, and we're seeing that people actually are gravitating towards these carousel posts where I'm talking about a day in the life leading into an interview. Okay, I need to continue doing that type of content and beyond, versus putting all this time into making reels that aren't going anywhere. So kind of evaluating the content. Okay, and then last thing, sorry, I'm just going to give you one more tidbit.
Of course.
I think doing branded collaboration and working either with partners that you'll both share the posts on your feeds, so it's going to different audiences, and or hiring influencers to put your content on their feed. You need to go and put, and this is not just specifically to you, but just for anybody who is trying to grow their account, making sure that your content is not in silo. Like, it is not just appearing on your feed. That works too, but it's going to work a lot better if you have other people supporting your content and sharing it on their feeds to get more people exposed to the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's just the tip of the iceberg. But yeah.
That's really great information. And so many people think, oh, social media, I'll hire a millennial to do that. But it's so much more than that. You know, it requires good writing, good storytelling, good visuals, like you said, are so important. Timing, you know, do you do video, or do you do a static post, or a reel, you know, and it's changing all of the time.
Totally.
One thing that really aggravates me about Facebook is I work with nonprofits, and, you know, they just want you to pay to play. And it's like, really, can't you do a separate algorithm for nonprofit?
I think the beast is too far gone with the way that the algorithm could be provided, or giving different options for different types of businesses. I agree with you. I think that that's terrible and a mess, and that nonprofits should not have to be using their hard-earned dollars to, or there should be some sort of like nonprofit.
Reach your audience, you know?
Right.
It's like, we're going to let 4 people see this post. It's like, well, thanks.
Right, exactly. And it's like, well, we've invested time, energy, and conversation into creating this post, and then now 4 people have seen it. That's wonderful. I will say, even when engagement is lower, providing a feed that is reflective of your brand and has information about what you're doing, or just, you know, speaks the same language of whatever nonprofit or whatever brand that you're catering to, it helps people get a glimpse of who you are before they commit to follow. So even if you're not getting high engagement on every post, there's still value to that post in terms of adding to the conversation of what your brand is. So that's something that I think would be helpful to know when some posts are just a flop. And that's just unfortunately, everybody, even if you have 1 million followers, you're going to have some flopping posts in this day and age with this algorithm. It just is what it is.
It is what it is. And it's, you know, it's the time. So do you think we've kind of peaked with social media? Like, are people on their screens less, do you think?
I would
Or
say
not?
definitely not. I would
Yeah.
say that's a wonderful question. It's almost an existential one at that. So great. But I think our screen time is going up and up every year. I even was reading a study about people's attention span going to shorter and shorter increments. I think 20 years ago, it was 2.5 minutes. Now it's 47 seconds. So we're really on the decrease.
Dramatic decline.
Pretty dramatic. And social media definitely is the top contributor to that, I would think, and just the fast pace of life in this technological age versus 20 years ago. But I think things will continue changing. Screen time, I believe, will continue increasing, but people may have more autonomy and understanding of what's going on, like even getting data saying that our attention spans are decreasing dramatically. Maybe people will think, okay, well, this is mentally unhealthy for me. I'm going to like set parameters for myself or set boundaries on my screen time or how I'm going to be navigating social media. I see a lot of trends of people unfollowing accounts that they find unhealthy and being more interested in accounts that are sharing an authentic approach in life, still glamorizing it a bit and not showing everything or oversharing some things.
Yeah.
But the peak of the curated influencer that is just showing themselves and not supporting other brands, accounts, nonprofits, or something, that might be past our peak. And I think also just the way that we interacted with social media and having like an easy growth strategy may have also peaked. I would argue that on TikTok there's still a growth strategy available, but it's still not easy. Any way that you want to spin it, like it when I started doing Instagram, it was like if you just post regularly and like other people's posts, you're going to grow, and it's just a surefire thing. And that I would unfortunately think is behind us. But there's always new social media channels coming into the market, and I don't want to be discouraging in my like words around it. I just think that it is hard. Like it's not an easy thing to grow, and I think that our mentality around it has changed too. Like you were saying, of some people just saying, oh, just hire a millennial and they'll just do it. It's not that easy. And there's so much coordination. There's, okay, well, where's the content coming from? Are we getting a photo shoot? Are we having videographers? How are we doing this on a regular basis? What does our language look like? How do we build these copy points? What are our most important calls to action? Like, how are we distilling who we are into siphoned posts throughout time? So there is a lot of strategy behind it. I mean, I am a millennial, so I think millennials are a great person to hire, but yeah, social media is not going anywhere, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, and I think it goes back to our conversation around food, where you have to have healthy balance with food, and I think social media too. And, one thing that grieves me is to see people at a restaurant with their heads in their phones away, re-engage. I mean, I think we're kind of losing the art of communicating real time, just as we've gotten so used to the screens.
Yes, it's definitely changing our communication patterns for sure. And just our manners of like what is acceptable and what is not. And like I'm battling that on a
How do you talk to people? I just am shocked at how people talk to, how they represent themselves on social media, first of all, and then how they apply in the most outrageous of ways about things. I'm like, it all leaves a trail. It all, you should be concerned about your personal brand at all times. And whenever you leave a nasty comment, it could come back to get you.
Absolutely. And I think that's a huge thing too. It's not just how social media is affecting our manners and interactions in face-to-face form, but it's how we need to recognize that our conversation and communication online still is reflective of who you are in person. So if somebody that, for example, if an influencer wants to work with one of the brands that is one of my clients, and I've seen them write something negative on their feed or write a nasty comment or put something out there that's mean, I don't want to work with that person. It does impact your relationships in a digital and in-person space, and it's going to live there forever. Don't put negative things on social media. And I firmly believe that with restaurants too. Like, do not blast a restaurant on social media. If you have an issue with a restaurant, call the manager and talk to them directly, because that is an efficient process in communication and actually getting to solve the problem. If you just say something nasty and mean and deter other people from attending or going to this restaurant, what good is that putting in the world? We all need to be really, really sensitive and aware of, are we adding to a positive spiral of good things, or are we adding to a negative spiral? Because it's so easy to choose the other way, and it's not the best way, in my opinion.
You are singing my song, girlfriend. Well, one last question to close us out. So the word relevate, it's really a word. It means to uplift or inspire. And Skye, close us out with a closing inspirational word about food is love.
Well, thanks, Rena. Okay. I think just really, first of all, I'm just so appreciative of you having me on, and that food has become a connector for us, and us having that understanding for each other of that we love something. And, we didn't know each other until a few weeks ago. So it's now bridging the gap and connecting us. And I think that food does that to everybody. It can cross any boundary if you put food on the table. And I think we all, if we can, I know I cannot influence the entire world, but if I can just shine my light in the way that I can to the people around me, to keep dominoing in a more positive space, to say that I really do think that if people are able to interact with each other and have something in common, it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to share a meal, but let's say you're even in an awkward environment, you're at a dinner party, or you're having to be at an office party, you didn't want to be there, and it's raining out or something. Having the subject of food for you to have a good conversation with somebody and maybe make their night because you're actually talking to somebody and saying something positive, that makes the world go round. Like, using food as a vessel for good conversation, for understanding each other, and for finding things in common. I think that's just the best thing that we could do with it.
That is such a great word to close us out, Skye. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for your time. I know you're super busy, and let's get together and enjoy a real meal and real conversation, not on the screens.
Yes.
Really soon. So how do people find you on the web and social media? Do share.
Yes. Okay. So if you follow me on Instagram, my handle is @skye.estroff. So my first name, last name. And like I was saying to you, it's ESTROFF, like French fry. So you can follow me there. My food TV show, Foodie Road Trip, has an Instagram account @Foodie Road Trip TV. And you can also check out all the things I'm doing on skye-estroff.com and foodieroadtrip.com.
And that is Skye with an E, right?
Yes. E on the end of Skye. Yes. Another great distinguished point there.
It's such a stage name too. Are you sure you didn't?
It really came about because my dad flies, but I think, it just fits. The name fits.
A great, great name. Well, thank you so much for being here on the Relevate podcast. Keep eating, keep shining, and I look forward to seeing you real, real soon.
Thank you, Rena. I can't wait to have a meal together very soon.
I know. Okay, Skye. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Food really is love. While we need its nourishment to exist, it can be a great joy in our lives. Like Skye said, not all food needs to be indulgent. You can find joy in the simplest of foods, like homemade bread, freshly scrambled eggs, a perfectly ripened peach. Let's get cracking and cooking in the kitchen. Love awaits. And you can find yours truly, Rena Olsen, online at rena-olsen.com. And that is RENA-OLSEN.com. On social, you can find me at Rena Olsen. And Facebook, it's Rena T. Olsen, T in the middle. More inspiring conversations coming your way very soon.